Welcome to the Calvin B. Taylor House Museum. My name is Barrett Moncure and I'm the former collections manager here. Today I have pulled some of my favorite textiles from the third floor, which are not usually on display, so I'm excited to share them with you all. Some background on the house is that it was built in 1832 by Isaac Covington. Our collection is unique in that many of our objects were donated by members of the Berlin community, so it spans a wide range of eras. We're going to start with some of the undergarments behind me, which come from the Victorian era, which is a little later than the house was built, so that's the late 1800s to the early 1900s. So this first garment is a corset. This is a really good example of a Victorian style corset. That's usually the era that people associate with the corset. They think of the cinched waist and the lace back. This one is really unique in that it's a whalebone corset. So these long lines are called boning, which is the material that's sewn into the fabric to give a garment structure. And unfortunately, since ours has deteriorated a bit, it has given us the unique opportunity to take a look at the material closer, and we can see that it's whalebone. And the fact that the boning is made of whalebone tells us that this was an expensive garment. Looking closer at the hand stitches on this corset tells us a little more about the way that women in the past treated their garments. They were meant to be enduring, so they kept wearing them over and over again because they were expensive and difficult to come by. Another really popular undergarment that was worn in the Victorian era is the bustle. This one here is a wire coil bustle, and the strap is linen. It would have been tied around the waist at the base of the spine and worn under outer garments and petticoats. And bustles were made to accentuate the S-curve silhouette, which was really popular in the Victorian era. Both of these garments came from this bridal trunk, which is a really unique piece that was donated to us by somebody in the community. The bridal trunk is interesting because it would have been packed by a new bride to take from her family's house to her husband's house. And this is a great example of what a bride would have worn as undergarments in the late 1800s. Moving on from undergarments, here we have two different examples of outerwear. So next to me is a day dress. This is a plaid day dress, and it is sewn in the style that was really popular in the earlier 1800s. So this is closer to when the house was built. We know that it's from around the time of the 1830s because of the style of the bodice. This type of ruching was very popular at the time. It's also likely a day dress because of the covered shoulders, which was indicative of a daytime garment. While the day dress here is similar to a style that Amelia Covington may have worn, the wash dress, which looks very different, is likely similar to a style that somebody who would have been doing the household chores would have worn. In this house, there were two enslaved individuals, Charlotte and Robert. It's possible that Charlotte may have worn something that looks more similar to this wash dress than the day dress. These two dresses are made out of the same two materials, so you can tell the polka dot part of the bodice on this one matches the fabric on this one laying down here, which is another example of the way in which people would reuse fabric over and over again to continue to make new garments. While the day dress and the wash dress are both more utilitarian, the next two pieces we're going to discuss showcase the ways in which people wore garments to demonstrate their wealth and status in society. This is our coming out dress, which is what it was called by its donor, which means that this dress was worn during a debutante ball, which was a woman's debut to society. There's a few really interesting features of this dress. The bottom part here is a ruffle, which was a really popular motif in the 1830s. The material is silk and gauze overlay. There's also some beautiful beaded details along the skirt here that match on this sort of back train. The dress is in two parts here, which was normal of dresses at the time. They would have been pinned together at the waist. The dress also has floral detailing at the neckline, which was a really popular motif of this time. You can compare it to this image here, which is a print from a ladies' fashion magazine. The fashion magazine is French, and the dress is also from France. The French fashion was really popular during the 1830s. Women often tried to replicate it. It's also off the shoulder, which is another way we can tell that it's an evening gown, similar to the picture here. A coming out dress like this would have been worn to demonstrate a woman's eligibility for marriage in society. The size and variety of material in this dress indicate its importance. There are many notable features. There's a lot of lace along the neckline and down the front and along the skirts. The ruffled trim is similar to the one that we saw on the coming out dress. There's also a structured train that would provide support when walking down the aisle. The dress is also made of silk, which was a really expensive material at the time. Unfortunately, silk is very susceptible to light damage, so it has yellowed over time, but when it was worn, it would have been closer to the color white. At the base of the dress, we have the shoes and the gloves that were worn with it. They're both made of leather. And then we also have this ambrotype here. This is a picture of a local Berlin resident on her wedding day. The expense of the ambrotype highlights the importance of the wedding day in 19th century life. These are just a few of my favorite pieces from our collection, but please come by and learn more about the history of our wonderful small town.